All right, welcome back. We continue live right here on the Bordas & Bordas hotline, 412-575-2600. Bob Pompeani, Gene Collier on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Real quick before we go to the lines, baseball today, we saw Milwaukee, which had a chance to go up 3-1 last night. They had to play a 5-hour and 22-minute marathon in which it went 13 innings, and finally it was Manny Machado scoring the game winner on a Cody Bellinger hit. That turned the tide. They came back, and Kershaw and company won that game, so they're up 3-2. But we saw a controversial home run, or not home run. Gene, what was your take on Jose Altuve tonight, if you saw that play? He hits what looks like a home run. Mookie Betts goes up to try to make the play, and fan touched his glove, but it looked like the ball was in the fan's zone as opposed to in play.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to come down to, and there cannot be interference in the stands. If a player reaches into the stands, whether it's fair or foul, he does so at his own risk. The other side of the coin is that if a fan reaches into the field of play and interferes, then that's interference. So it was called wrong by Joe West and then confirmed incorrectly by Major League Baseball. You know, it's one thing for the umpires not to know the rules or enforce the rules, but it's another thing if you get a chance to look at it and you still don't enforce it.
Well, that goes to show you that the call on the field is that important. If it were called the other way, it probably would have been upheld as a home run. But right. So even though replay can change, it doesn't necessarily do that. I don't know if they had conclusive evidence in their mind, and that's why they went with the call.
What do I always say in this situation, Bob?
Get rid of replay.
Death to replay.
Death to replay. You know, I never thought I'd agree with that, but the more this stuff goes on, the more I think it's gone way too far. But how do you put it back in the barn? You can't. It's too far away now, and technology's only getting better. Manning on Twitter says it was upheld because Joe West is ridiculous. Hopefully, soon umpires are a thing of the past. Use cameras and computers, so he wants to go all opposite of you. Rob says easily fan interference. I'm waiting for the day they have seats back further so none of this nonsense takes place. And Bob Sassy on Twitter says, watching the Astros-Red Sox, home run called fan interference. Joe West is blind ridiculous. Well, let's go to line one. Dave in Bell Vernon. What's up, Dave? How are you?
Hey, Bob, listen, I enjoy your show so much.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
But last Sunday, I heard Rosenberger on another channel talking, and I actually heard him say that Connor's game Sunday, he said twice, he said Connor's game Sunday was his last game. What did he mean by that?
He meant it sarcastically, just because he's heard all the reports that when Le'Veon Bell gets back, he's going to start. I don't know where he's heard that, because I haven't said that. Most people I know have not said that.
I know you haven't heard, but I mean, I heard him twice.
No, but that was just one of those sarcastic comments. I don't think he meant anything by it, did he, Gene?
No, he meant that it's ridiculous for anyone to suggest that Connor wouldn't start when Bell comes back. That's what he meant. It's sarcasm. A lot of people don't get it. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, and, you know, he's been in James Conner's corner all season. He's seen what the guy has done, and he said there's no reason. In fact, yesterday on his radio show on 93.7 The Fan, he also went so far as to say Bell, when he does come back, is going to need 3 to 4 weeks. And he's right. He hasn't played football in an awful long time. He hasn't taken a hit. And we saw last year when he came in week 1 how long it took him to get going.
Oh, yeah, 3-4 weeks before he was a good player. That's right.
So I don't think Mike Thomas is just going to throw Bell in. He's going to stick with Connor, and then eventually it's, you know, you might be a blessing in disguise. You have 2 healthy running backs later in the season. All right, let's go to Nathan in Pittsburgh. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
Hey, good.
Okay, good. What's up?
Hey, I'd like to know why on my house, like all my half on Le'Veon Bell, if he's not making money, how come his music is not important except playing football? What's up with that?
Gene, I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah, I didn't understand a word he said. So.
All right, let's go to Ron and Irwin. Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Hey, Bob. Hey, Gene. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy the show. Enjoy your banner. Hey, I just want to totally agree with you about the Bosa case. I mean,
Nick Bosa,
he doesn't owe anybody anything. I think, you know, he's his own entity. He's got to take care of himself. Being a Notre Dame fan, same thing happened to Jalen Smith a few years ago. Went to Dallas. I mean, he was probably a top 10 pick, and, you know, he got hurt. He had, you know, lasted 3 or 4 rounds. So I'm total agreement with you on that case.
The other thing, and we agree because, you know, he's already put out a pretty good resume. We've seen what he's done over the course of how many games he's played in his career. So there is no suspense about what he is. He's trying to preserve his body. And I also don't think this will apply to a lot of people. It's just going to be the top 10, top 20 guys who maybe think. I can't see someone who's just on the bubble and has to show more deciding I'm going to quit now either.
People will make that mistake, but not very many of them. I mean, this player has, shown, as Bob said, shown what he can do. He's going to be a pro. It looks like he can play. So, yeah, I mean, I support him.
Let's go to line 2. That would be John in Banksville. Always good to hear from John. How you doing, John?
Good. How are you guys doing?
All right. What's up?
I'm glad you two guys. I respect your opinions.
Thanks,
I've got a question I can't figure out. Talking about the college rankings and playoffs, you've got 2 through 10, and then you have Alabama. And the thing that I can't figure out is, well, first of all, let me say that the number 2 team gets the opportunity to get creamed by Alabama in the national championship.
Not necessarily.
You don't think? But let me ask you this. They have been so good consistently for over a decade, and it's not like they can be there 10, 12 years like a pro. The seniors leave, juniors jump to the NFL. And what, in your opinion, is it that makes them so much head and shoulders better than everybody else? How is this possible?
Well, Gene, what do you think about Alabama and Nick Saban, how they do business down there?
Well, I think that's one of those things where it just creates its own momentum. The cliche is success breeds success. People who want to play in the SEC, if they feel like they're an elite high school player, the best of the best, they want to go to Alabama. And, Alabama's been able to sustain this. I don't know if it can go on and on, but, there are very few teams that can challenge them, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I also think, like you said, it's one of those things, they put out success day after day. Tuscaloosa is a beautiful place campus-wise for colleges. A lot of people like to go there. It's the only show in town. It is impressive when you go down there as a recruit, no doubt, right? Yeah. You see their facilities. They're state-of-the-art every year. They keep adding more and more to it. I don't know. What do you think that program makes revenue-wise for that university?
Oh, my gosh, I can't even.
Which is why whatever Nick Saban gets paid, he's worth it, Right?
Well,
you don't agree with that?
In theory. Economically, yes.
Well, it is economics.
Via economic theory, yes.
Yeah.
But in my view, if you're running a university where the football coach is the highest paid person, that's not really a university. That's something else.
Well, there's too much. I can understand that. There are other people going there to actually be professionals in other fields that are more important than playing football. There's no doubt. But it is a moneymaker, and because of it, it supports just about every program they have down there. So there's two sides to that. I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
We got to take a break. We'll take it. Come back with more right here on Pittsburgh CW.